ranking the least to the most reliable luxury cars for sale in 2026. I'm going to include statistics based on IC Cars, Consumer Reports, JD Powers, and much of my own personal experience to come together to tell you the common areas, the best engines to buy, and of course to naturally steer you away from the catastrophic failures and the worst cars on the market. I'm going to share 25 of those current luxury cars for sale in 2026. So sit back, enjoy the ride. Let's get into it now. The first car comes from Maserati and it's the Gran Turismo. These vehicles have a 3-liter twin-turbo V6 with a ZF 8-speed automatic transmission. Now they're rated at a 48 out of 100 for reliability. They might last 120,000 to 160,000 miles on average, but they've also going to cost over $95,000 in that 5-year time frame to own, largely because the expensive parts, much of the association to Ferrari, and the shop rates are high, the parts rates are even higher, and it's going to be a pricey car to own. We won't even talk about depreciation, electronic gremlins and glitches, suspension, leaks. Of course, you've also got recalls related to the software and ADAS driver system programs. Typically are the areas of concern. It's a beautiful car. I love Maserati for the way they sound and the way they feel, but let's be honest, the sound and the feel doesn't equate to reliability, and they're the first one, the lowest and least reliable on our list. Number 2 is the Jaguar F-Type. Now they're no longer for sale brand new, the production has ended, but there's still some stragglers for sale in 2026 of previous production values. Now they only rank for reliability at 50 out of 100. They have a host of issues with problems related to fuel injectors, high-pressure fuel pumps, carbon fouling, water pump leaks, and of course, even that infamous cracked Y-pipe can lead to catastrophic coolant leaks. Timing chains have been a noted issue as the rear differential is electronic, and if it's not maintained, it can lead you to problems. Now, the 8-speed ZF automatic transmission is absolutely bulletproof, but these cars are likely going to cost you somewhere in that $85,000 to own in a 5-year time frame. On that note, they're also expected to last 120 to 150,000 miles, which is actually fairly reasonable considering the caliber of car you're dealing with here. Cooling failures, infotainment faults. I personally had infotainment gremlins with mine, and it's real. It happens. They had to order a SIM card. It took 2 weeks to get. It finally came in. They plugged it. It worked for a week, and then it stopped working. Go figure. Now, I loved my F-Type. It was great, and I wouldn't change that for a second. But reliability, admittedly, are not their primary objective. The third slot goes to the Audi A8 for almost the bottom of the barrel for reliability. Yeah, they have an 8-speed automatic transmission. They're also rated only at a measly 54 out of 100 for reliability. They are expected with proper maintenance. You can still get 140 to 180,000 miles out of them. The Audi A8 is a beautiful car, but it comes with a cost. And reliability is certainly the price you're going to pay, because it also has issues with the air suspension failures, electrical modules, recalls related to electrics, sunroofs also coming off the rails, problems with some of the electronics, infotainment, the screens. There's no shortage of problems with the Audi A8. Now, it's a beautiful car, all-wheel drive. Of course, the Quattro system means you're going to have sure-footed driving in the worst of conditions, but the Audi is not your number one, by far from it in terms of reliability. The next one is the Mercedes-Benz S-Class. Comes with a couple of different engines. You can get a 3-liter twin-turbo inline-6 or a 4-liter turbocharged V8. Both great engines. They perform exceptionally well. Rank at about a 56 out of 100 in terms of overall reliability. 150 to 200,000 miles is expected lifespan. As you can see, they'll all last a significant amount of time if you take care of them. It's just how deep is your wallet to keep them on the road. Also, you can expect $100,000 of cost to keep this vehicle on the road for 5 years. Combine that with depreciation and repair and service costs, it's not a cheap vehicle to run. On top of it, air suspension, screens, electronic failures, and of course, frequent software and safety recalls just means you spend way more time hanging around the dealership, grabbing the free coffee, getting the free water, and saying hi to every service manager that you can possibly find. Meantime, while you're in the service shop waiting for your car to be fixed, you're going to be hassled and hounded by about 10 or 15 different salespeople trying to sell you the next product by Mercedes-Benz. Number 5 is the BMW 7 Series. Is essentially Mercedes-Benz S-Class paternal twin. Is the 7 Series, you can either get a 3-liter inline-6, of course it's the B58, absolutely spectacular engine, and that's the one I would buy, or you can get the 4.4-liter twin-turbo V8, of course, the N63, not necessarily their best product in terms of durability. They're sure fun to drive, but of course the latest generation also has hybrid versions versions on top of it. So it's a fun car that's very versatile and chocked with tech, but there's no shortage of issues. 58 out of 100 for overall reliability, and on top of it, 150 to 200,000 mile range for lifespan isn't bad. Again, but it's going to cost you along the way because likely $92,000 is the amount of money that's going to basically vaporize in a 5-year time frame owning these cars. We've heard about the xDrive system and of course their transfer cases starting to fail allegedly outside of warranty. The ZF 8-speed is reliable, but on the engine side, even with the B58, the oil filter housing, you've got the mixing, either oil and coolant and oil, or altogether catastrophic failing because they split. Next thing you know, you've got a leak. There's also 2 systems for cooling, and of course there's a couple of tanks. One of either one can let you down. Catastrophic engine failures, timing chains piling up, those are generally older problems, and the extra heat under the engine because of the hot V means that you will start to use a little bit of oil with some mileage. You're also going to likely see a moderate recall exposure because of starter issues or some other kind of challenge that BMW seems to be going through, whether it's the transfer case issue or whether it's even related to the oil filter housing or some other random chaotic event. Backup cameras, electronics, those are all areas that BMW seems to be tied to. Number 6 is the Porsche Panamera. Beautiful vehicle, but they're not the most reliable. Turbocharged V6 or a V8. You can also get the 8-speed PDK, which is their dual clutch gearbox. Absolutely lightning fast. I love the way they drive. They're rated at a 60 out of 100 for reliability and expected to go maybe 180,000 miles, maybe 250,000 kilometers if you're lucky. On that note, $88,000 pretty much vaporized in 5 years time frame simply because the cost of maintenance and servicing is very high on these Porsches of any style. And as well, the PDK mechatronics has been a common theme with some failures. Coolant leaks, nothing unknown there. Not uncommon for a lot of the German manufacturers, as a lot of cooling systems, now they're running more coolers, more cooling lines, turbochargers, everything needs cooling system, and of course that all comes at a cost. Potential leak points. Next one is a Bentley Flying Spur. Beautiful car. I love the looks. These take luxury to a whole nother level. But with a 4-liter twin-turbo V8 hybrid and an 8-speed automatic transmission, there's certainly lots going on under the hood. But that's not where the beginning and end is. In fact, 60 out of 100 for reliability record means they're not that sturdy. They might go 160,000 miles if you take care of them. They will likely cost you anywhere from $125,000 to $140,000 due to depreciation and expensive repairs in 5 years. You can expect air suspension issues, electronic challenges, of course, infotainment screens, and even those window regulators. What a bugger those are. They are a low volume car, but they do have costly repairs when they creep up there. The next is a Rolls-Royce Ghost. At a reliability rating of 61 out of 100, it's really nothing to write home about. 180,000 miles is the expected lifespan if you look after these cars, and $160,000 gone. Think about after-tax earnings, that's closer to 250 grand. You could buy a house every few years or buy one of these. And that's just on the loss in the value of the vehicle, putting into maintenance, repairs, unexpected costs just related to something breaking or some weird part, a door handle flying off. And those parts get extraordinarily expensive because they also have crazy intense engines like a 6.75-liter twin-turbo V12 engine with an 8-speed automatic transmission. Problems like electronics, suspension actuators means that recalls aren't so much the issue as are expensive repairs. It's a pricey car to own. It's an amazing car, but as they say, you've got to pay to play. The next one is one that I don't necessarily get behind too often. It's the Volvo S90. With a 2-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder engine, let's throw some hybrid on there. How about a supercharger on there for good measures too? Way too much technology, sensors, ADAS systems, tire pressure monitoring systems, emergency braking systems are all faults and sensors and issues that many owners start to experience with these cars. With a reliability rating of 63 out of 100, and the fact that they might go 150,000 miles is clear indication that those engines are running really, really hot and hard. You're likely going to lose and spend about $67,000 combined between depreciation and, of course, the cost of repairs and maintenance along the way. It's not a cheap vehicle to own and operate. Infotainment bugs, hybrids, sensors, issues, and of course, recalls related to the camera and software. Yeah, Nothing new and uncommon there. The next one I personally love, the Cadillac CT5V. These are great cars, but again, you got to pay to play, and reliability isn't their game. Performance, going fast like sin is the game. And honestly, I like these cars. I would probably buy one as well, but knowing full well that it's going to cost me a lot of money to keep these on the road, because these cars come with a 3-liter twin-turbo V6, 10-speed automatic transmission, which coincidentally is part of a nemesis for GM, and of course, they've had no shortage of shared issues with their 10-speed autos. 65 out of 100 in terms of reliability ratings, 180,000 mile lifespan, and maybe a $70,000 tab by the time 5-year rolls around the clock. Differential issues, strictly because such power plant starts to shred the guts of the differential, and they just don't last all that long. Electronic dampers, problem areas, GM software recalls occasionally. They're nothing short of problems. And again, you're likely going to become best friends with some of those service advisors over at Cadillac. Another one I've talked about, I love these cars, is the Alfa Romeo Giulia Quadrifoglio. Now, they're no longer for sale, but I've seen a couple of them still lingering around. So if you really ask around, you're going to find these still for sale in 26. They do come with a 2.9-liter twin-turbo V6, essentially Ferrari-derived, ZF 8-speed automatic transmission, and they shift amazingly. That engine's hot, fire-breathing, and honestly, it really makes BMW, puts them to shame. Now, they're not necessarily faster, but they feel more exotic. I love the way these things drive. You know what? At a 66 out of 100 for reliability, they're not that amazing. On top of it, they might last 140, 150,000 miles if you take care of them, and $76,000 is likely going to disappear out of your bank account over 5 years, so kiss that goodbye. Electrical gremlins and cooling systems. A lot of the electrical gremlins I've already spoke of before with these cars are chalked up to the fact that a lot of these cars are not driven daily, therefore they sit a long time. Owners just let them sit, the batteries start to discharge, you start the car up with a lower battery voltage, next thing you know, it starts puking out all kinds of weird codes. That's common for a lot of these cars today with a lot of sensors on board. The next most reliable in line is the Genesis G90. These come equipped with a 3.5-liter twin-turbo V6 hybrid with an 8-speed automatic transmission, 68 out of 100 reliability rating, and about 150,000 mile lifespan. $63,000 gone. Driver assistance sensors, infotainment problems, yes, and even some quality challenges. I've also seen some problems related to some of the fit and finish and interior quality materials, buttons and knobs that do seem to kind of come apart. I love the quilted stitching, but they aren't necessarily the best put together. Many people swear by them, but because their association with Hyundai and Kia, I have a struggle getting past that. That being said, of course, highway assistance braking recall for 2026, according to Consumers Reports, means that they're not perfect. A relatively small issue to deal with, you're going to be spending some time in the service shop too. The next one is a Mercedes-AMG GT 4-door. I love these cars. They look absolutely cool and amazing and very prominent. They're driving down the road, big, large, voluptuous. I actually like the style of these. The interior is very well done too. These come with a 4-liter twin-turbo V8 and the 9-speed AMG automatic transmission. Shiftable, fast, furious, and certainly not the same gearbox that you find in my little C300, but it works quite well. 68 out of 100 for reliability, puts them with 150,000 mile expected lifespan, and you're going to probably lose $130,000 in 5 years just trying to own these things, staying ahead of faults, gremlins, that massive depreciation that absolutely brutalizes any Mercedes today. And as well, you can expect some turbo oil leaks, electronics, coolant leaks. Those are all common problems. Now, the 4-liter is a pretty reliable engine, relatively speaking, but they're not perfect. Backup cameras, and again, there's a host of little issues that creep in there. The next one in line, I love these cars. The BMW M4 comes with that beautiful new S58, twin-turbo 3-liter inline-6, not to be confused with the B58. This is actually a sport-tuned, has 2 turbos and a much hotter internal engine drivetrain. It also comes with the 8-speed auto, but you guess what? You can get an optional 6-speed manual gearbox. Now, these cars are rated at 70 out of 100, and as you can notice, there was a time, probably 10 years ago, where BMW would be much closer to the bottom. You see them much higher. Consumers Reports are continually pushing BMW up the ranks because of their engines, their 6-cylinder and their 4-cylinder drivetrains. The B58, the B48s, that's their 6 and 4-cylinder engines, and now the S58 is potentially even a hotter engine yet, with similar levels of reliability that the B58's punching out. These are absolutely great cars. They could last as long as 180 to 200,000 miles if you take care of them. Sadly, there is a heavy depreciation that follows suit, $73,000, where some of that's less depreciation, more of it is expensive parts and maintenance. The cooling system wear is a problem. Water pumps, Even though they're upgraded, we're no longer dealing with the electric water pumps from the older cars. Mechanical water pumps, thermostats, cooling lines, they all start to split and leak. We know the BMW game. By the time you're at 50, 60,000 miles, you're starting to replace the odd hose and line. Stay ahead of that maintenance and you're good to go. Carbon buildup, because of the direct injected engine, you're going to have more of that. Of course, it means walnut blasting and doing a little preventative maintenance every 60,000 miles. And honestly, it's really not a big issue. Some software recalls, backup cameras. I believe there was also a recall, not sure on these ones, recall directly related to a starter motor on some small series of some of their cars. But ultimately, BMW is vastly better than it has been for quite some time, largely related to their 4 and 6 cylinder engines. The next one in line is the Audi S5 with a 3-liter turbocharged V6 and an 8-speed automatic transmission. A wonderful car to drive. I even love the way they look, but let's be honest, they're not really holding in line with BMW. They're not selling as well, and there's a strong reason. As good as these engines are, the rest of the platform is a little blah, and a lot of people are just electing to either just get a cheaper opportunity with the Volkswagen or just go over to BMW across the fence. You know what? You're looking at about a 71 out of 100 in terms of reliability, 180,000 mile lifespan, and about a $66,000 tag gone in 5 years' time. We also know that a lot of the Audis have typically had issues with carbon fouling, O2 sensors, and water pumps. Nothing short, nothing new, nothing shocking. Some of the suspension parts seem to be a little more fragile in some of the Audi products. I find they generally don't last as long as a lot of the BMWs in similar miles. These Audis generally are a little bit better than anything when you go back from 2011, 2012, and 13. Those ones were an absolute horror show for the brand, and they've been having a tough time shaking that overall reputation since then. If cars mean more to you than just basic mode of transportation, and you want to join a community that actually cares about the fun driving experience, Car Play Place. Grab your merch just like this right down below. Click and link. You're good to go. The next one is the BMW 5 Series. You can get a hybrid, you get a turbocharged 2-liter 4-cylinder, or you can get also a 3-liter inline 6-cylinder turbo engine, the B48 or the B58 engine. Either engine is absolutely amazing. If you do step up to the larger drivetrains, like in the M550 or of course the M5, you're going to spend a lot more money on maintenance and costs, and the reliability literally falls off a cliff. So sticking with the 4 and 6-cylinder engines, the reliability is fairly reasonable for the 5 Series. 72 out of 100 for overall reliability gets you at least 200,000 miles with these drivetrains. Go with the M Series or the V8 versions of the 5 Series, drop that down to 120, 140,000 miles all day. However, $65,000 is lost in a fairly short period of time. Oil filter housing leaks and sensors, nothing uncommon there. We've already spoken about some of the failures in sensors, window regulators, tire pressure monitoring systems, but that oil filter housing keeps creeping in there and it's an issue. And there are allegedly some lawsuits tied directly to that people are saying that BMW has known about this for some time, and yet they continue putting out that same product that tends to split in the middle, potentially mix oil and coolant, or just split and leak altogether. Keep an eye on your coolant levels, keep an eye on your oil levels. If your oil level's rising, coolant's going in there. If your oil level's dropping, where's it going? Maybe into the coolant, maybe on the ground, who knows? They generally don't burn a lot of oil, but leaks could be a big problem. The 8-speed autos in these cars are absolutely spectacular, but the B48 and the B58 have really dished BMW out of the hot spot. That's why BMW is rising up the ranks in terms of reliability. Oil filter housing isn't just the only issue. You can expect, of course, some of the xDrive transfer case issues are starting to creep in there for durability challenges. The next one is an Acura TLX Type S. Sadly, bye-bye. But again, I've noticed there's a few stragglers here and there, so it's not that you can't get them. They're not necessarily for sale directly as brand new 26 model years, but they're still out there. I love these cars. 3-liter turbocharged V6, 10-speed automatics. There have been some flaky issues with the shifting and some lurching with the trannies, but overall a pretty durable package. 74 out of 100 for reliability, 220,000 miles, not a shocker. 350,000 kilometers all day. This is a Honda product. $54,000 gone up in smoke. Some of it's depreciation, some of it's repairs. I would expect brake wear to be an issue, infotainment lag, and I've spoken about many Acuras in the past. Some recent models seems to have sensor issues. It seems to take time, glitchy, a lag between sensor and infotainment screens. I personally love these. They look spectacular, especially in the Type S, and it's definitely one that I've strongly looked at. The next one in line for most reliable is a Cadillac CT4V Blackwing. Oh man, I love these cars. 3.6-liter twin-turbo V6, 6-speed manual, or a 10-speed auto. And because Because I can roll my own gears, this car's really high up on my list. Sure, there's issues with the differential shredding, but that comes from the huge power and performance. Some of the magnetic dampers, that has been a bit of an eye-opener. But at a $58,000 loss in 5 years, it's not a cheap car to run. On top of it, they can actually go 200,000 miles, which is inspiring. And as well, they're rated at a 75 out of 100 for overall reliability. Because of their 3.6-liter twin-turbo V6, they are actually a hot rod. It's a sturdy engine that seems to tolerate that extra performance. And it's one that I love these cars, man. Tire, smoke, special. These are great cars. They look cool and they go like the wind. The next one in line is the Genesis G80. You can get a 2.5-liter turbo 4 or as well a 3.5-liter V6 with an 8-speed automatic transmission. 77 out of 100 for reliability, and many people, you see a lot of these driving around on the road. They seem to be gaining in popularity. I personally like the way their fit and finish looks inside. Honestly, they look even nicer than many of the German rivals these days. They're likely to last at least 200,000 miles, and at a $56,000 loss, they're certainly one of the more affordable vehicles to own over a 5-year time frame than some of the competition here on this list. But you can expect some software bugs and trims and rattles, and I've spoke about this on the other one, but some of the interior fit and finish isn't that inspiring, and some of the trim pieces seem to kind of unclip or don't necessarily feel of the best quality. And of course, recalls related to the minor ADAS or driver assistance programs have been included for some of these vehicles. They're vastly better than things have been in the last 10 years. And honestly, with reliability that counters many of their German rivals, it's definitely a compelling look. The next one is truly, let's be honest, one of my favorite. I've always loved these. I've had about 4 or 5 of these in my life, and we're talking about a Porsche 911. You can either get a manual gearbox or their PDK, which is their dual clutch gearbox, and automatic. They're lovely. Absolutely, probably arguably one of the best cars, sports cars, borderline supercars on the market today. Why do you think they're selling and reselling for such high dollars? Why do you think people are paying $80,000, $100,000 over sticker for a GT3 or GT3 RS? Why do you think they've cranked up the prices on a new Turbo S? Are they worth it? That's for you and everybody else to kind of decide. But let's be honest, as long as there's a customer willing to pay that, these cars are going up in price. They're great cars. They perform well. In coupe format, they lose almost very little to nothing in terms of depreciation. So the cost to own is really largely tied to the maintenance costs, repairs, unexpected breakdowns. At a 79 out of 100 for reliability, they're up there. They're pretty durable and robust. They can last as long as 250,000 miles and beyond. And $74,000 is likely your average consumption cost in a 5-year time frame because of parts, incidentals, maintenance. Your annual servicing is going to be a pricey little so-and-so. But of course, cooling pipes and hoses, suspension bushings, turbos, things like that are all going to be potential failure points. Take care of it. Do your oil services. Give it right cool down, because virtually every 911 today is turbocharged except for the GT3. But even the Carrera S's are all 3-liter twin turbo 6s. Of course, they've all moved into that turbocharged realm on top of just the turbo cars. So there is some extra added maintenance, oil services, and cool down are absolutely imperative. They are considered very durable according to iSeeCars.com. The next one, sadly, on our list has been discontinued last year, but there are a few stragglers, and that's why it's making my list. An RCF? Oh, wow. What are you getting there? A 5-liter V8, naturally aspirated, 472 horsepower? Pfft. Nothing wrong with that. Those cars, of course, come with an 8-speed automatic transmission that's purely shiftable and rates at an 82 out of 100 for overall reliability. They're nothing short of amazing. And on top of it, they can last 300,000 freaking miles, man. These things are just unstoppable. That's one of their best engines, their NAV8s. And let's be honest, with Toyota reliability backing this, there's nothing short of spectacular. They also likely cost you $50,000 in a 5-year time frame, so they're clearly one of the lower cost vehicles to own in 5 years, largely because of low depreciation. Maintenance and service costs are relatively moderate, so it's an easy car to own and operate. And on that note, brake actuator wear, infotainment aging, of course those parts are always a little dated, and of course, yeah, the electrics and the tech on the older outgoing models aren't that great, but the quality inside feels nice, luxurious, it feels well made, and that's really what they're focusing on. Very low recalls means that these cars really won't spend much time in the shop other than changing rear tires because you're too busy lighting them up with that V8 engine. I love these cars, definitely high up on my list. I just wish you can get in a manual, then I'm sold 100%. If you're looking for an auto sporty car that actually is fun to drive, the RCF might have you you covered. The next one, not a shocker, as we get closer to the top of the list, is another Lexus. We're talking about the LS. It features a 3.4-liter twin-turbo V6, 10-speed automatic transmission, and you know what? Sadly, it's a close cousin to what we're seeing with the GX550 as well as the LX600 and the Toyota Tundra, which we know that they've currently got a big recall for hundreds of thousand engines plus that are recalled because of failures. For some reason, it doesn't afflict the LS model, and that one I still have to scratch my head over. But there is a special edition in 2026. You really have to give this a look. I love the LS models. They're beautiful. And as a result, with an 84 out of 100 reliability rating, they're nothing short of reliable too. They're good for at least 300,000 miles, and on top of it, you might only lose 58 grand in a course of 5 years. Pretty reliable, easy car to own, and with air suspension, aging, touchscreen lags, yeah, there are some dated components, but all in all, it's a pretty reliable product. Few minor recalls historically, but it's definitely a car I would look at. And fortunately, there's still one available for 26, but after 26 is gone, so is the LS. You may want to take a look at these. They're one of the very, very best. The next one on the list is realistically one of those cars that many people say is probably the most reliable car on the market today. But at slot number 23, we're talking about the Lexus IS350, which gives you 8-speed automatic transmission. And of course, their 2GR engine, which is a naturally aspirated 3.5-liter V6, which uses a dual fuel injection system combining of direct as well as port fuel injection. So it doesn't get that carbon nonsense. It just runs for hundreds of thousands of miles. Watch for those water pump issues. Outside of that, they're reliable. The transmission's pretty stout. They're loaded with tech, and there is a restyle this year. Beautiful. Front grille looks a little toned down, feels a little more like Corolla-ish, but overall the packaging is beautiful and the interior is dressed up nicely. They've got an improvement on the ADAS systems and the tech is a little nicer than the previous generation, but it is a reliable beast. 87 out of 100. Wow. Reliability is almost second to none. It also guaranteed to run 400,000 miles and $46,000 gone in 5 years. That's not bad. They have a great engine, great transmission, a moderate amount of tech, so they're not overly complex. No air ride here to fail, and honestly, just a great looking car with an amazing reliability rating. Number 24 slot. That's right, we're second last. We have the Acura Integra Type S, and that is absolutely great. I love these because you can row your own gears. These always make my ratings. We're talking about a 2-liter turbo i4 and a 6-speed manual gearbox with these vehicles. Gives you about 250 to 300,000 miles of lifespan, and really only going to cost you about 40 grand in 5 years. Pretty easy car to own, fun to drive. The clutches do wear out quickly because you're probably going to get a little overzealous, a little rammy like I tend to get sometimes, and you might start eating clutches. But infotainment glitches, as we see with Hondas and Acuras, they tend to have a little bit more of the glitches related to the infotainment sensors. And of course, I would generally stay away from the Integra base model with the CVTs and the 1.5s, literal trash bags in my opinion. Stick with the Type S and the manual gearbox. You've got a fun car that's reliable and it's likely going to last the test of time. Now it should be of no surprise, number 25 is going to go to a brand that does not shock. With a limited number of recalls, specifically minor infotainment issues, a minor amount of brake wear. Of course, $39,000 lost in 5 years means it's one of the cheapest to run too. 500,000 miles of expected lifespan, and it's rated at 92 out of 100 for reliability. Puts it heads and tails about everything in the luxury car segment in 2026. Guess what? It's even going currently through a restyle. It's the older outgoing model, which definitely is a crossover year 25-26. You want to get the previous generation because it's the most reliable. It carries a 3.5-liter V6 Toyota-based engine called the 2GR. It's made it up to an 8-speed automatic transmission, and we're talking about the slightly outgoing Lexus ES. One of the most reliable cars you can literally find at all costs, low maintenance costs, high reliability, and just super easy to own. Definitely check out right there the only Lexus vehicles I would buy, the only BMWs I would buy this year, and the only Mercedes-Benz I would buy this year. Hope to see each and every one of you real soon, everybody. You all have a lovely day. Talk to you then. Bye-bye.